and welcome to another episode of United for a Healthy Stoughton. My name is Stephanie Patton, and I'm the Prevention Coordinator for the town of Stoughton. And today I am privileged to have with me the Norfolk County Sheriff, Sheriff McDermott. So I'd like to welcome you to our show.
This is great. First time on your show, and
Yay.
It's been great so far.
Fantastic. Yeah, we've
better.
been having a fun time talking before we got started here. And so I told you I was going to ask you to introduce yourself and share right off the bat a fun fact about yourself before we jump into like your professional stuff.
Sure.
So let's hear it.
Well, luckily over the course of time, I've had so many different opportunities to showcase different talents and things. Figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
Yep.
But I think the number one thing that most people may or may not know is that I served as the drum major for the Boston College Marching Band. So I came from a musical background, and I was also the lead singer for the Boston College Jazz Band.
Cool.
So my music career faded quickly after graduation, and I had to find a new outlet. So the law and politics came into play.
Okay. I was actually going to ask you if you didn't say whether you had like a background in performing, because we were talking about how your children are both involved in performance.
My mother was a musician. My father was I think that's how he at least tried to stay in touch with my mother, is to get involved with music.
Mm-hmm.
But then I get the bug, and then both of my kids have it as well. So.
Awesome. And the talent.
Well, we like to think it is.
Yeah.
My kids actually are not really talented.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I'm just a lounge lizard, as they say. Okay. Karaoke king.
Yes. Awesome. Excellent. All right. So let's talk about like the role of the sheriff, because I feel like I don't know a lot about the role, and I'm guessing people who are watching at home might not know a lot about it either. So tell us a little bit about like what do sheriffs do, and like what is a typical day in the life?
Yeah, sheriffs, it's interesting because most people, their idea of the sheriff, a lot of times they do see it on the news a lot, mostly on the national news. The sheriffs are seen quite frequently as the chief law enforcement official in their respective counties or states.
Yep.
And otherwise, they also see it in the movies. You hear the sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood.
Right, or you think about like the Wild West.
The Wild West, the sheriff, and the old westerns and things of that nature. But the interesting thing about sheriff is that it is the oldest recognized non-military law enforcement position in the history of our modern civilization.
Oh, wow.
And it started basically back in Europe, predominantly in Western Europe, feudal England. As small communities came together, they clustered in communities, and they called themselves shires.
Okay. Yep.
We hear of oftentimes in The Hobbit, you hear of Bilbo Baggins in the Shire, and those small communities would cluster together, and like any early civilization, they would form and decide who was going to be a local leader, and the people would elect a person who was known as the reeve. Reeves translated is guardian.
Okay.
And so the reeve of the shire was historically an elected elder person that would be serving as the protector, the wise person, the person that would settle disputes, the person that would sometimes talk about how resources were shared. And so the reeve of the shire, over the course of time, the shire's reeve mixed into sheriff.
Okay.
And so that topic, that goes back hundreds of years, centuries into Western Europe. And when the United States was founded, that concept of sheriff came over with the people that settled here in the United States, settled here in Massachusetts.
Yep.
And so sheriffs have been around since the dawn of our country. And, in the early days, sheriffs were pretty much the local protector, the guardian, and the leaders of their respective communities and clusters, their shires.
Yep.
And but as time evolved, as communities grew, as cities evolved, even townships evolved, the county sheriffs were kind of morphed into a different role, and there was day-to-day, mostly municipal law enforcement officials came in. Public safety officials became first responders and firefighters, and so the sheriff kind of, especially in Massachusetts, kind of became a little bit more of a background figure. And by statute in Massachusetts, the sheriffs are predominantly involved in care and custody of inmates. So once through the criminal justice process, once an individual goes through the criminal justice system, the trial court is either held on trial, held on bail, It's held by the sheriff's office on a pretrial basis, or once they are sentenced, provided they are sentenced based on the criminal statutes up to 2.5 years in the House of Correction, that's under the sheriff's jurisdiction.
Okay.
Whereas if you're convicted of a higher crime, over 2.5 years, you'd be sentenced to the Department of Corrections. So two separate entities unto themselves. And so the sheriff, we house, at least in Norfolk County, we're medium-sized sheriff's department, and we have about 360 inmates in our facility. And it really becomes, that's the day-to-day operation. That's the predominant thing that we do, but it really only serves as one element of what the sheriff has done. And certainly since I've been sheriff for the last 4 years, we've evolved a lot of the outside resources that are available, and we make it a point to be directly involved in each and every community that I represent, which is 28 towns in Norfolk County, including Stoughton. And we have a very vibrant community outreach program. We work hand in hand with the local municipalities. I speak quite frequently with local members of the boards of selectmen, the health boards, certainly the local police chief, fire chief, local veterans agents to find out what services are needed so that I can perfect my role as the guardian of the people. The chief public safety officer is what I look to be. And we've evolved that role. So while we do care and custody on a day-to-day basis, we also do that community engagement role on public safety programs. We also serve a law enforcement role as well. We're a member of the Metrolec Law Enforcement Council, which is a regional law enforcement group that goes out on major crisis issues, goes out on certain calls, barricaded suspects, major crisis events, riots, or major crowd issues. And so the sheriff's office has some of the bigger toys, for lack of a better word.
I was going to say, I have seen your, the mobile command station. Yes.
Yeah, we have two now. We have the big, the RV, which is, it's a state-of-the-art, mobile command center that allows us to move into a community that has a crisis situation. We're the #1 call-out right now on any major issue in this region, and that vehicle rolls out. And so it serves as a communication hub for the local police department, fire department, and a lot of the smaller towns can't afford those kind of capabilities. So we're able to bring in resources from all over the country, from federal resources, state resources, grants and things. And so we purchase those kind of vehicles as well as equipment so they can be used by local municipalities. So we also, it started, which became kind of a tactical advantage of law enforcement, is the utilization of drones. I remember playing with electronic helicopters as a kid, and you'd be able to manipulate the thing up and down. Those evolved and get quite elaborate in the capabilities now with drones. And law enforcement has found a way that certainly it gives a tactical advantage as an enforcement capability to give folks on the ground a bird's eye view, literally, of what's going on. And so we started out a tactical unit, our drone unit, and it's not as easy as just buying drones and having a couple of guys ready to fly them. And we have to send our officers to FAA certified school. You get certified as an FAA certified drone pilot. You have to submit flight plans, and it's very complicated when it comes to that stuff. And so we invested heavily in our training. We have, I think, 6 different drone units themselves. We have small mini units that can actually get into a house where a barricaded suspect may be. These units also have communications devices on them. We can record, we can get video surveillance, we can get audio communication, so we can have a crisis negotiator negotiating real time with the drone, with the individual that's on the inside of the house. And but we also do search and rescues with these as well. So when we've had quite a few call-outs on missing children, seniors that might have dementia or Alzheimer's, we've had some very good successes about finding people in wooded areas and things
Yeah,
of that
yep.
nature. So that's an important role that the sheriff plays, is we have those tactical units that get involved in a bigger operations and that just help support our local PDs and fire departments on that nature.
Excellent.
So
Great.
it's really important.
Yeah, no, I think that's really helpful to give people a sense for all of the different pieces. And I want to talk about some of the prevention and outreach stuff that you guys do in a minute. But I'm curious about sort of how you ended up in this role. If you started out when you were in college, you were talking about some of the performing arts stuff, and then you made this leap into a totally different career path.
Yeah,
So,
I disappointed my father, I think, when I came home. I was at Boston College getting my degree in political science and communications. And
so that feels related.
that was related, and
Yeah.
but I loved performing, loved performing arts, and my jazz band would perform every January. We'd go, we had a partnership with Club Med International, and so we would go around the world and perform for Club Med, and I became friends with a couple of the executives in Club Med because I negotiated some of the trips, and they said, "Geez, Pat, you'd make a great local organizer and for some of these villages, and I'm like, well, how that evolves into now the sheriff,
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
But I went home and said to my dad, I said, "Geez, Dad, I think I might have a job working at Club Med." And he shook his head. My dad was a World War II veteran, and he was trained, come home, go to school, get your degree, go to work.
Right, yeah.
And so the thought of his son gallivanting around the world, performing at
Club Med,
resorts,
yeah, right.
wasn't quite fitting the bill. But I ended up getting involved. My passion was about working with people and community engagement and activism. And I get involved locally with some nonprofits. I get involved in my community association. And it's an odd thing. I never said there's no mistakes in the universe. And I had an opportunity to run for the city council in Quincy and was fortunate to be elected in 1995 to that role and served 3 terms there. I had a couple of jobs at the State House. I worked for then Senator Morrissey, now District Attorney Morrissey, then State Representative Mike Bellotti, now the former Sheriff Bellotti. So we're all friends from years ago. But then I decided to run for countywide office in 2002, and I served for 18 years as the Register of Probate for Norfolk County, and enjoyed putting together programs for in terms of access to justice issues, helping those who couldn't afford legal representation get access to the family court. And so we get some creative programs and partnerships, and I really enjoyed that for the 3 terms I served as Register of Probate. And like everything else, everything has its a shelf life. And I looked towards a 4th term as kind of an easy thing to do, but then I said it really didn't challenge me, and I was looking for something different. And I was going to go back out and practice law, maybe get involved in some of my nonprofit work, some of my real estate investing work that I was doing, but got the call from Sheriff Bellotti at the time, and he said that he was stepping down to take a job at Quincy College, opened the door up, or the opportunity up, and Sheriff Bellotti gave me about a half hour heads up before the word hit the street. So I had about a 30-minute window to try to call around and get as much support as I could. That was in 2018. And it was interesting because when he left the sheriff's office, it created a vacancy in the office. And so when there's a vacancy in the sheriff's office, the governor has the prerogative to appoint an acting sheriff until the next state election. So Governor Baker at the time took it upon himself to appoint an acting sheriff. And I had already decided to run for the position. And little unknown to me, the governor in his wisdom knew a good name when he saw it, and he decided to appoint a gentleman by the name of Jerry McDermott to the term of sheriff. So Jerry, who was a friend of mine, and Jerry served as acting sheriff. He also was the Republican nominee in 2020. I became the Democratic nominee. I was able to win that election in 2020, which filled out the 2-year remaining term of Sheriff Bellotti. So in 2022, I was fortunate to run for my own 6-year term, and so now I'm in year 2 of that particular term.
It's a 6-year term, which is a different term length than
it is
other offices.
Yeah, most offices are 2, 3, sometimes 4. Sheriff, I was used to having the 6-year term as Register of Probate, so this made a natural flow. And it's interesting because most people don't realize that the sheriff is also a constitutional officer. So it is embedded in the Massachusetts Constitution.
Oh, wow.
And so it's not something that, it's something that certainly the people of Massachusetts in their respective counties took very seriously when they put that directly into the Massachusetts Constitution. And so it's a position that is elected every 6 years by county. And even though we're not county government, that's oftentimes what confuses people.
Yes.
We do have county government here in Norfolk County. We have a great crew of county commissioners.
Yes.
But in 2010, I believe, because of financial issues, the sheriff's office, which was the biggest employer within the county, was taken out of the county government affairs and actually placed within the state government. So our budget is built through the state legislature and the governor, and is administered with the Executive Office of Administration and Finance. And so when the legislature debates and blesses us with our budget, which hovers around $40 million a year to operate the sheriff's office, my team makes sure that we properly invest that, because it is the people's money, and we want to make sure it's not wasted.
Right.
That we invest in what we're supposed to do, and that's the care and custody of inmates and the proper rehabilitation of people when they come into our care and custody. And that's the number one role that we have, is to make sure. And one of the things I say to the residents of Norfolk County, the elected officials in Norfolk County, is when you send an individual to my care and custody, it's my obligation to return that individual as a better product than I found. And it's challenging, to say the least, because we're not dealing we're dealing with some pretty hardened individuals who come into the facility, especially post-COVID. Prior to COVID, there was a lot of the atmosphere of corrections has shifted, and criminal justice has shifted over the course of time. Norfolk County, at one point in the sheriff's office, we housed over 700 inmates.
Wow.
And a lot of those folks were, less non-violent offenders, a lot of drug cases, some drunk driving, non-property and non-life injury stuff. But over the course of criminal justice reform, decarceration became a big topic. Diversion programs became quite popular and successful. And so that has kind of whittled down the folks that are coming into the House of Correction. However, it has emphasized kind of where the big issues are that we deal with. It's mostly substance use abuse and mental health. And so the individuals that are in the care and custody of the sheriff on a day-to-day basis are dealing with some substantial issues. And it's those mental health issues and the substance use issues that are the root cause of the criminal behavior. And that is what we have the task of correcting, depending on how long we have that individual. And sometimes it's the average sentence usually is about 5 to 6 months.
Wow.
So we don't have a lot of time to work with these individuals. And we are very proud of that we talk about reentry begins on day one, and that we make sure that our case workers, our mental health clinicians, our reentry specialists are working on day one with that individual to make sure that on day 60, day 180, or day 400, they're ready to re-enter the community. And there's a lot of work that goes into that, needing to focus on the person's well-being. Certainly healthcare is a huge issue. Education is a big issue. Certainly mental health, work skill development, finding them a job, finding them housing, getting them into a stable environment, which can then give them an opportunity, gives them a shot at a successful life post-incarceration. That's a challenge. It's not. It seems easy to say, and it is. It's easy to say it, but when you see it in practice, it's a very big challenge. And but it's a rewarding challenge, and something that I've embraced.
Great. So I want to talk a little bit. I can't even believe how fast this is going. I want to talk a little bit about the intersection and like the overlap of the work that we do in the community around prevention, particularly around the substance abuse prevention, because like you said, often it becomes a root cause for other behaviors where people end up getting in trouble with the law, and because of challenges with addiction and other issues, and mental health often is woven in there. And so your office has really partnered with us on a number of initiatives and providing resources and opportunities for young people so that we can, in all of our work collectively to try to get ahead of some of these issues so that you don't have to hopefully host some of these folks in your care, that we can kind of get in front of things. So can you talk about some of the programs that you have? Yeah.
Yeah, the prevention begins as early as possible. And so we love working with the kids.
Yes.
And working within our school system, working with our local communities on different things. We bring a lot of programming into the schools, whether it's reading initiatives with the little kids. But we also bring a lot of leadership, and we challenge the kids to make good choices, build team building. We bring anti-bullying, anti-cyber bullying programs into the schools, and we also bring the stuff that kids are tempted with. When it comes to drugs or alcohol abuse, we want to at least expose them to what happens when you do get involved in drugs or alcohol. And we try to do it in a fun way. We bring out our distracted driver program with our goggles, which show you what the effect of an impairment would be on your driving or your walking. We also talk about distracted driving when it comes to texting.
Which is a big one, bigger than the underage driving piece.
Very much so, and I think kids get it. It's they especially when you demonstrate to them what an impairment does. And we have our goggles actual show like what one drink looks like, 2, 3, and it generalizes it. But you put those goggles on, and luckily it's done in a fun setting of a classroom or a gymnasium. And the worst thing that you're running over is an orange cone.
Right.
And so I think it highlights to kids the dangers that are there, and we give them opportunities to make better choices. And I think that's what's key in terms of preventing. And our signature piece at the Sheriff's Office is our youth leadership camp that we do every summer.
Right. Yeah. Which is awesome.
Kids. We have 1,000 kids. We had 1,000 kids up until recently, but we're expanding on doubling that. One of the things I campaigned on.
You have a second spot for that now, right?
Yeah. That's what I campaigned on. I said, because I would get in trouble when I was campaigning, as I call it, down county, because it seems a lot of the county services tend to be around the Quincy, Braintree, Weymouth, Milton, Randolph area. And when you get down into the county, into Walpole, Foxborough, up in Medway, Medfield, down in Plainville, there was a lot of those. I didn't see the sheriff that often. I didn't see the sheriff's services as much. So I made it a point to make sure we're bringing more programming up to those communities. So our youth leadership camp, which was founded in Braintree 20 years ago, which, like I said, 1,000 kids a year go through it. We're now rebuilding that same camp concept in Medway.
Nice.
And Medway actually has the signature item is our climbing course. We have a climbing course. The kids just love to do it. And it's not just about climbing. It's about making that team building, overcoming fears, cheering on your fellow classmate to overcome those apprehensions about getting up there and doing it. So we have a similar thing in Medway, which was great. We found a campus there, and we're bringing the curriculum to Medway. And we had a soft rollout. We actually started in Franklin 2 summers ago. Medway has now become our home for our second camp, and we're hoping for a big splash this year with that, so that we can double our efforts for the kids. And that really is an informative curriculum. And once we get those kids for a week, the bonds that those kids are forming, and even the shyest of kids, and that's what always. I was a shy kid. I wasn't an athlete. Hence my musical stuff. And we actually incorporated a program called Find Your Voice for those kids who might be a little bit less athletic or less apprehensive, more apprehensive about maybe those bigger settings. But we bring every kid, we find them where they are, we meet them where they are, and find out what their fears, their apprehensions are, and then we build them into a conversation and activities that really build up their confidence level. And if we can get those kids at an early age, and that program starts when they're 10 years old, and we work with kids right through there into college.
Oh, wow.
And if we get the kid on the right path, there's very little that we have to worry about. But we know there's challenges with most communities, and so we are focusing on bringing our programming to people that might not know about it. Our youth leadership program sells out every year, and we're trying to target folks that might not otherwise hear about us. I always get concerned about the single parent that might have 2 or 3 jobs trying to put food on the table and the rent getting paid, that doesn't hear about the program, doesn't get online to sign their kid up. So we're actually going into those underserved communities right now, my engagement team, to try to find those kids. We're working with the school system to try to find those kids. Those kids that might be in more problematic situations, and see if we can help those, because prevention is what we are focused on that before we have to go into intervention.
That's right. So. Yeah. And I've had the privilege of being on your Braintree campus and getting to work with Matt and Tony over there at that program, and the ropes course. It is amazing. It's an incredible facility, and the guys on that campus are amazing humans. So if people are looking for, and maybe we should plug that, if people are looking for info about camp,
we're getting ready to sign up. So you can go to norfolksheriff.com, and there'll be a sign up on that. Certainly, I always would encourage everybody, if we can at the time, follow us on social media as well. The website is great, but it's only updated fairly infrequently when we have something to put on.
I feel that way about mine too. But social media is better.
It's the social media. Follow us on Facebook at the Norfolk Sheriff's Office. Instagram, we've got a LinkedIn account. All of our information is updated on there, and you can scroll through. We are going to actually be launching our sign up for the camp within a week or so.
So this is well timed.
This is well timed. So, and it's a rolling admission. We want everybody to have the opportunity. Back in the day, it was like literally sign on at 9 p.m. on a specific night. And it was sold out by 9:02.
Wow.
So this is a rolling admission. I wanted to make sure that it's available to everybody that's interested. And we want to make sure that folks that haven't gone to the camp in the past have a chance to experience it. So we're getting more and more people involved. And who knows, if we get enough interest, we'll roll out a third camp.
Make another site, So we're down to our last minute, which seems insane. So I'm glad we actually started talking about your website and your Facebook and the social media accounts. So those are places where people want to learn more about the resources that your office has available. Those are good places for them to go.
Perfect spots.
And then any other things that you want to make sure we share with folks here in the last minute?
Well, just stay engaged. At the end of the day, I'm doing my best to get the word out about what we do in the Sheriff's Office, and I appreciate your taking the opportunity.
We appreciate all of our collaborations.
And it really is a game of the social media these days. I think the more followers we have, and I've challenged my communications team to get our followers, get our content a little bit more interactive, so that we are engaging the folks as much. And for anybody that's watching, I love coming out to, whether it's cable shows, civic groups, schools. We have a great comfort dog that comes out to
we've
schools,
met the comfort
dog.
Programs, he comes to our health fair.
So there's a lot going on in the Sheriff's Office, and so we definitely want to engage the audience a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I appreciate all of your support with the Oasis Coalition. And
absolutely,
you guys have folks at our meetings and our events and stuff regularly, and so I appreciate all the collaborations, and thank you for everything you do for our county.
Thanks for having me.
All right, great.